An open letter to Mr. Donald Trump, warning some profanity is used. Dear Mr. Trump, holy fuckballs. I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry that your daddy didn't love you enough, or you were bullied in school, or whatever childhood trauma you suffered that made you think that your life wouldn't matter unless you stabbed that big pussy in the air the rest of us call a sky with a half dozen steel and concrete dicks 1,388 feet into the air with your name emblazoned across them like a tramp stamp on the back of a stripper's ass, passing out lap dances for $5 a pop in some shuttered industrial lot in the downtown Detroit area. I really am, but you've got to stop taking it out on every living creature on the fucking planet because other people have problems too. I speak 7 languages, and there isn't enough fucking profanity in all 7 of them in the entire fucking history of the other 455 Indo-European languages combined to describe the kind of dick-sucking fuckwad you have to be to say that we should go around killing the families of terrorists. Balls the size of gazaba melons, but I hate to tell you that is not a requisite for being president of the United States. And it's people like you, people who have all balls and no brains, who go out and get other people's children killed. And while I don't mean to give you pause on your way into turning this country into a Sharia caliphate with enough medieval charm, compassion, and warm fucking fuzzies to make Khalif Ibrahim look like fucking Jimmy Carter raving on 3 tabs of ecstasy, you might be interested in knowing what you're talking about is a fucking war crime, and not one of those, oh, hey, if we don't call it torture, then it's okay war crimes, but one of those, there's some really good practical, and don't you know it, ethical reasons why we don't go around executing people's families kind of war crimes. What kind of medical-grade hallucinogen do you have to be vaporizing, concentrating, smoking, re-fucking the hashing vapor before freebasing into one of those liquid nitrogen-fueled ice dams you call a fucking femoral artery to not realize that if you start killing families just because of what one black sheep asshole does, that it's that kind of wanton disregard for human life that's making us enemies faster than we can kill them? Well, granted, not if you use gas chambers, but I didn't want to point that out because I don't want you to get such a raging hard-on that Julio, the night janitor at Trump Tower, who you pay minimum wage only because 2 pennies glued together with industrial-grade horseshit isn't legal tender, from having to break out his Mr. Reliable squeegee to clean off the latest Superfund site that is the top of your fucking desk every time somebody uses the words gas chamber correctly in a sentence. And you know what? Yeah, sure. I know it's nice to think that the United States of America is so star-spangled awesome that we can invade foreign countries for absolutely no reason, and I mean this, no fucking reason whatsoever. The UN, MI6, and half the world knew Saddam didn't have any weapons of mass destruction, and even if he had, he couldn't hit us with them even if he did triple the number of rubber bands on his Scud missile launchers. Clinton already got revenge for that fictitious Iraqi plot to kill baby Bush's daddy fabricated by the Kuwaitis on the off chance we'd be stupid enough to give them protection money, and I won't spoil the ending of that little intrigue. And the invasion certainly had nothing to do with the inhumanity of Saddam Hussein using chemical weapons that we gave him on 10,000 of his own people, because before the days when we were roasting marshmallows over the warm glow of Saddam's nuts, we didn't lift so much as a finger to stop mass genocide erupting in Darfur. And don't lie to me and tell me we want to overthrow a dictator and let the Iraqis suckle on the sweet, sweet baby juice of freedom because we break out in joygasms at the thought of installing brutal, illegal, and fascist dictators all over the world, where they're free to kill as many of their own people as they like so long as they stay in our back pocket. Here's an idea. Before we start lecturing people on freedom, let's stop propping up countries like the UAE, Qatar, and the rest of the Middle East. We give the dictatorial Royal House of Saud money, guns, and whatever they need to ruthlessly, brutally, and illegally oppress their people, in exchange for them exercising their OPEC veto power to grant us the cheapest oil anywhere in the world. We funded the economic boom of the 90s on the backs of innocent Sauds. Did you ever stop to fucking ask why nearly all of the hijackers were from Saudi Arabia? Think that might be a subtle hint that they're pissed at us? They hate our dictator-supporting, baby-bombing guts over there, and nobody could fucking blame them. And nobody can tell me that we give a rat's ass about freedom from tyranny for anyone but ourselves, and none of that shit has anything to do with Islam whatsoever. And of course this means we can torture people. Never mind that we used to have something called our principles and our word when we signed the Geneva Conventions, a set of rules, by the way, we expect our enemies to live by. Never mind that every country that breaks those rules always thinks it's justified and is always fucking wrong. Never mind that it doesn't work. It doesn't fucking work. We all know it doesn't fucking work, but it's cathartic and badass, and who cares that sometimes we get the wrong people? Because, well, hey, that star-spangled awesome thing again, and we're on a crusade, so that makes it all right. And you burn our innocence and you burn our credibility at the altar of it doesn't fucking work. And yeah, I know, I'm a big pussy because I don't watch Fox News and get off on the idea that we rape little boys in Abu Ghraib, but at least I don't pretend to love baby Jesus and his mother as I hook up a guy's nipples to a truck battery, or pretend that I think God's gonna forgive me the shit because, well, he's the one who told us to go over there in the first place and everything we do is right by definition. And, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to kill your buzz by letting that utter bummer of a thing called reality shatter the illusion by saying that maybe our ignorant ass actions have consequences and maybe we shouldn't be forgiven if we decide to let good intentions be our get out of jail free card that keeps us from doing the hard work of sitting down and taking a good hard look in the mirror before carpet bombing countries 10,000 miles away. But hey, that's me. I'm part of the Blame America First crowd, thinking that maybe no means no, she didn't have it coming, and maybe somehow, in an alternate topsy-turvy universe, the children we drop bombs on do matter, didn't get what's coming to them. We're not the all-knowing badasses whose shit don't stink that we think we are, and the vast majority of Iraqis didn't want to throw flowers at us, but rather bullets instead, because the worst day they ever had under Saddam was still 10 times better than what their liberators gave them, and then to be so hung up on ourselves that we had the fucking balls to think that we were going to make them pay for it, which is really fucking gangster, and then expect that one of the little fucking ragheads wasn't going to put it together that maybe the real reason we were there is because once the Royal House of Saud finally collapses, OPEC is going to rape us like a French hooker in the back of a little alley called Rue the fucking Day, unless we find some poor little country, charge in there with our Christian hearts bleeding into our boots, talking about how much we care about them, make billions of dollars for our oil companies, and keep our OPEC veto power. But hey, we're America. We're fucking perfect, and I'm sure that the ragheads are too fucking stupid to have figured that one out. And of course I know that this shit isn't your fault, Mr. Trump, but you can't survive without the coma-inducing, fact-ignoring black hole of a right-wing reactionary constituency that you call your base. And I know why they're voting for you. They're pissed. They're outraged. I get it. I really do. They're being marginalized and trivialized in a world where you can't work for McDonald's without knowing how to use a computer, but they still can't get the clock on their antiquated 8-track Betamax VCR to stop blinking noon. So supporting a massive, bloviating bullshitter like you acts like a surrogate cock that lets them stick their chests out with pride and adopt a healthy mob mentality that lets talk about lighting a black man on fire seem reasonable, because it's easier to glow onto the fact that you don't take shit from anybody and mistake that for good policy, sound judgment, and strong leadership than to ask what real-world impact these policies will have on us and the rest of the world. It's easier to say that you're honest and tell it like it is than to compare what you say to reality and to admit that you're setting more pants on fire than an iPhone 5C. And you know what they want? What they really want? They want the world to slow down. They want information to slow down. They want to untangle the complexity and say, yes, it really can be as simple as it was in the old days before boys kissed, blacks could become president, and the planet was rejecting us like a bad organ. But you can't roll back that clock. You can't unwind that spring. You can't undo the internet or turn off 24-hour news. And in this global economy and the age of interconnectedness, a butterfly flapping its wings in Saudi Arabia really can cause half of Manhattan Island to go up in flames. So I'm supposed to say that it's okay because you represent a genuinely disappointed, marginalized, and ever-increasingly disenfranchised wing of the Republican Party that feels like the world's walked away from it? Maybe they do have a genuine point hidden somewhere in all that addle-minded insanity. But what I don't know, what I don't understand is, where's my right to be fucking outraged? We elect my guy as president, he wins fair and square, and I watch as a wash of Sea Party fucking nutheads, so-called patriots who say they understand the Constitution real good, while painfully oblivious to the fact that it was carefully, deliberately, and painstakingly written so as to force all parties to compromise on the silly fucking notion that maybe forcing people to find middle ground might not be such a bad fucking idea, too stupid to know that every article, every paragraph, every sentence, every clause, every word, and every fucking piece of punctuation all have one thing in common. They were all a compromise. And I watch as these hollow patriots throw their toys on the fucking floor and say they're going to break them all if we don't play by all their fucking rules, and I watch them bring government to a grinding halt and point their finger to my guy and say it's his fucking fault. I live in a world where Michelle Bachmann, Sarah Palin, and Rick Perry can all get fucking elected. Rick Perry, who gives his constituency a woody with thinly veiled suggestions about leaving the union, but Texas ranks 40th in education, so they can't put two and two together and figure out that for every dollar they pay in federal taxes, the government gives them $1.30 back. 32% of their budget comes from the federal government, and they can't produce or sell enough oil that makes that up on their own, or operate an economy without the FDIC, Interstate Highway, or the Federal Reserve. But I've got to put up with them thinking they're doing us a favor by sticking around. Meanwhile, I get 70 cents on the dollar, meaning that my state is carrying their sorry asses, and I wouldn't mind, except that when I say I want universal health care because I'd rather pay a couple $100s a year so that some morbidly obese guy who can't pay the parking meter because all his money goes to cheddar wurst wrapped in bacon and deep fried in bacon fat can get an annual checkup, cancer screening, and sound medical advice and free statins, rather than paying $44,000 when he keels over from a heart attack, gets dragged into the ER, and ends up needing to get his ticker swapped out while his family is thrown out onto the street because he can't work anymore. The hypocritical bastards say that guy should be carrying his own weight. And I mind it when smug motherfuckers in states that I'm carrying deny science, deny global warming, deny evolution, and with their bottom-of-the-barrel education sit there and tell me that they're going to rewrite my textbooks and totally awesomize them and make sure that every little American cherub can learn some alternate history where Christopher Columbus wasn't a genocidal maniac, the founding fathers were all Christians who didn't fuck their slaves, and the Constitution is the inspired word of God and the newly minted 28th book in the New Testament because nobody should have to live in a world where you can't make up your own fucking facts. But I gotta sit there and listen to your shit about a liberal bias in the media when this media won't call out any of this horse shit, and they're so terrified of being called biased that they won't speak truth to stupid. So I'm fucking outraged. But since there's supposed to be a fucking run-up in the room, I can't call you and your constituents out as the ignorant, homophobic, Islamophobic, xenophobic, nationalist, racist, fascist that they are and just sit here and take it as they complain all day. Fuck that. Because while your constituency is yearning for the Leave It to Beaver 60s, which never actually existed, I have to live in the real world with real fucking problems like climate change. But you and your ilk have no shame. No fucking shame, because you don't give a rat's ass about what damage you do to the economy for the rest of the world when you deny shit you don't understand. Here's a fucking thought. Instead of saying that the science is still out on it, or that your gut tells you it's not real, how about you pick up a fucking book, take a couple of hours and learn the basics, see what science is saying, learn the difference between ant culture and a fucking 100,000-year-old ice sample. Hint, ice cores are warmer, have more color, more feeling, and are less desperate for attention. And instead of parroting back that line, the science is still out, you tell us exactly what's missing that the science needs to satisfy before you'll believe it. But you can't because you don't understand it. You just know that there are votes to be had and deals to be done by saying that's all a conspiracy from China, which makes you a bottom-of-the-barrel two-bit whore who'll sell out the human race for a couple of dollars and some votes. And I have to listen as your party thinks to lecture me on common sense, but I don't think you know what that means since you use it to justify judging an entire 1.6 billion people based on what 1% of 1% are doing. Yeah, real fucking common sense. Islam has the same percentage of terrorists as any religion. Protestants and Catholics murdering each other, KKK firebombing churches and lynching people, and the assassination of abortion doctors. What kind of idiots think there aren't any Christian terrorists? Here's a hint. If you go to Uganda, don't be gay, Sparky. There are fucking Buddhist terrorists, for fuck's sake. You want to know who they kill? Muslims. Maybe the religion isn't the fucking problem. Ever think of that? Maybe it's ignorant-ass imperialistic countries who pretend to give a shit about the suffering of innocent people but really only want cheap oil and big gulps and who will carpet bomb the shit out of anyone who stands in the way of that. You want to know why education, diversity, and engagement are important? Because that gives us perspective on shit so that we don't have to be slaves to our overreactionary adrenal glands and make our own problems worse. Your folks have learned that with age comes wisdom, but they fucking gag at the notion that there's a wisdom to be found in the rest of the world and the experiences of people who've lived different lives. You want to talk common sense? Fine. Let's go on a little journey. Since Yemen in 1992, Al-Qaeda has been trying to strike on American soil. For 10 years, they've tried to blow up transatlantic flights, take out Quantico, Langley, the Holland Tunnel, the Lincoln Tunnel, LAX, Logan, not to mention sporting a raging hard-on for killing the Pope. And I know it's patriotic to blame Obama for his fuck-ups while not violating America's little safe space by blaming Monkey Boy for September 11th. I'm okay with that. You want to know why? Because even if Bush hadn't wiped his ass with the daily briefings that warned him of the attack, it was going to happen. If not on 9/11, then some other time. It took them 10 years and a little luck to do it, but if you stick Ray Charles in front of a dartboard with 1 million darts, he'll get the bullseye eventually, with or without Monkey Boy tending bar. But we know where the failures were, and common sense says that a few fixes at the CIA, FTSB, and FBI would have solved the problem. Instead, we hand everything over to the Republicans and say, fix this. And this, the party of the Constitution, of freedom, and of small government, create the single largest bureaucracy in the history of the human race, expand government surveillance and warrantless wiretapping, gives government sweeping powers to detain prisoners and spend billions of dollars blindly warmongering all over the Middle East, and wipe out that budgetary surplus Clinton was nice enough to provide. Every year in this country, 40,000 people die in car accidents, 40,000 people die from gun violence, 40,000 to suicide, 60,000 each to influenza, pneumonia, and diabetes, and nearly 600,000 a year each for cancer and heart disease. And if you knew the first thing about science, you'd know that we can deal with these problems. We did it with polio, we did it with antibiotics. This isn't a stretch. There are solutions to these problems that are a lot less expensive than what we spend fighting terror and keeping up 95% of the world's foreign bases which belong to the United States of America. And that's just the beginning, because we've got corporations too big to fail. And after a meltdown in 2007, which nearly ended our economy, nearly ended the United States of America with food riots, oil shortage, no electricity, hell on earth, we came within a bull's ass hair of it. The conditions are worse today, and you can't talk about it because that's not what's going to get your people elected. And our military commanders are telling us on the ground that there's no military solution to this. We need to figure out what they want, why they're trying to hit us. We need to figure out what's motivating them, which is exactly what the terrorist-sympathizing liberals have said from the start. But we already know what the problem is. It's us. We're doing it. Our actions and blazing disregard for human life and the suffering of others. And you fuckers, if you had 1 ounce of common sense, you'd see all this. Do you even remember what it was like before we were terrified of the Middle East? Do you know that everything we've done since then has made the problem worse? And even then, you're still 100 times more likely to die at the hands of another fucking American, maybe a drunk driver in a drive-by shooting, than any fucking Muslim. You want to know something? And I know I'm going to get my ass kicked for saying this, but you want to hear something? Real common sense, real truth to power? 9/11 wasn't that big a deal. It was huge. It was staggering. I know. But was it really so big that we needed to do this to ourselves, turn on our friends, obliterate a country, torture people, destroy the Constitution, and head down this Trump-gilded road of fascism? Are you fucking serious? We blew every opportunity to de-escalate, to calm down and say that every country gets hit, it was our turn, it was going to happen eventually. Let's see what we can do to keep it from happening again. But since the gun-loving reactionary Republican was in charge, that wasn't going to happen. Instead, we said, bring it on. So yeah, I got just as much of a right. Fuck that. I've got more of a fucking right to be pissed about the state of this country than your fucking narrow-minded constituency, because I've got to fight narrow-minded dicknuts like you and your boys. Do you want to know why I love the Freedom Frogs? Because these people who can make a tank for 35 cents on the dollar because it only needs to go in reverse. 2 days after the Paris attacks, these people go call up the UN and tell them to triple the number of refugees they're going to take in. You know why? Because they don't think the jury is still out on evolution. They don't bomb other countries for revenge or in the name of God, and they know that the science is in on global warming and has been for a long time. And because, unlike Sarah Palin, they know that refugees get a year of background checks before the UN release them anywhere, then we here in this country do another year on top of that. So if you're a terrorist trying to sneak into the US, it's actually a lot easier to swim across the Atlantic Ocean than to come in as a refugee, dickwad. That's right, these fucking French, who could probably actually find Sodom and Gomorrah on a map, are beating the terrorists. How? Because they're not cowering in a closet somewhere curled up in a little ball with the lights out, tears streaming down their face crying, please don't hurt me. And you know what? They're fucking scared. All of them. They're all terrified, just like we are. But they know that that's how the bad guys win. The tip-off? It's the name. Terrorist. My 4-year-old figured it out with the help of Oscar the Grouch in the first 3 chapters of Hooked on Phonics. And hey, I was thrilled. What a relief to know that American integrity, courage, and Judeo-Christian ethics are alive and well. They're just all in fucking France. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that same idiotic trope designed to bail you out every time somebody points out just how stupid your fucking ideas are. That if I hate this country so much, I should fucking leave. But I'm tired of that fucking shit because you haven't cornered the market on patriotism, and this is my fucking country too. And excuse me for thinking that maybe it can do just a little bit better than it has. Excuse me for thinking that if we really are the greatest country in the world, then maybe we should start acting like it. You know what? If you're tired of the lamestream media and educated presidents and Hollywood liberals, here's an idea. Why don't you get the fuck out? That's right. If you don't like a black president who can add, if you're scared by the internets, if you fetishize the wild, wild west, want a Bible in every courthouse, don't believe in evolution or global warming, and think women are chattel to be seen and not heard, then get the fuck out. When did you put us on the defensive by saying that we're the un-American ones and that somehow you have the better ideas and are the most reasonable exclusively and only because you shout louder than I do? You're the party of fear, and when you're not scaring the shit out of your own constituents, you're cowering my guys. And you've turned us into an empire, a motherfucking empire, and like all empires, we think we're not. We think we're benevolent, imposing our Pax Americana on the world, expecting them to be grateful for our grace, and destroying them if they're not. We're the biggest exporter of guns in the world, the biggest exporter of death, and with 95% of the world's foreign bases, over 600 of them, and a military budget equal to that of every other country in the world combined, we're a motherfucking empire. But like all empires before us, from Rome to England, we will collapse under the weight of our own military and arrogance if we don't get off of this economy of fear and death. Think it can't happen? Think it won't? That's what every fucking one of them thought. And to even suggest a more measured, nuanced approach is to hate your country, blame America first, give therapy to the terrorists, and fly in the face of American bloodlust and revenge for other countries that have intruded into our lives, and I'm fucking sick of it. And here you are, the next piece in this Orwellian jigsaw puzzle, sliding into place to highlight the utter insanity that is American politics that justifies cruelty, bloodlust, and revenge under the guise of protecting oneself in this, one of the safest countries in the world. So let's bomb the fucking ragheads and starve the wetbacks out of this Judeo-Christian Eden, where we love the Bible only so long as it lets us hate and subjugate gays, Muslims, Jews, blacks, and that whole other half of the human race that you say loves men only for their money, and in your case, I believe it, but that the rest of us nonetheless usually call women. And I've used a lot of swears, Mr. Trump, but I want you to be able to understand at least a third of what I have to say, because you don't know enough about history, politics, or the human condition to understand just 1/10 of how much I just pwned your ass. Yes, I know the fucking O is missing, but dick nuts like yourself don't get to ask why, because no matter how much money you have, that shit will always be above your pay grade. And I'm sorry if I've offended you, but I don't feel guilty because I don't hate you. I don't fucking hate you. Okay, I don't like you very much, but I don't fucking hate you because I don't respect you enough to bring myself down to the level of hating another human being, and because no matter how bad you are, you will never turn me into one of your ignorant-ass, blind supporters. And I'm pissed because the right should be doing something about your ass, because they say they put country first, but really, when Colin Powell stands up and says you can't put Sarah Palin 1 heartbeat away from the presidency, he speaks truth to power, you kick his ass the fuck out. So yeah, they put country first immediately after their own party. So now I have to sit here and tell you that you and your kind have been fucking me and mine over long enough. I'm gonna own my rage and say that your ignorant fuckwad constituency has done enough fucking damage, because just like you, I want to make our country great again, and it starts by making sure that the closest thing you ever get to an Oval Office is that gold-plated throne you call a toilet, and by not letting fear, ignorance, and terrorism control the fucking agenda. It starts with compromise and working together, making friends faster than we make enemies, building schools, not leveling them, and not going alone, and by not telling the rest of the world to go fuck themselves, and by saying that the emperor has no clothes and telling it like it is, and calling you and your constituents out for the race-baiting, Islamophobic motherfuckers you all are. Peace out!